Great, testing. What do you say?
All right.
So put this near you somewhere.
Okay.
You should know how to mic yourself.
I got it. I got you covered. I'm sorry that this is like in such a haphazard way.
No, I don't feel like that at all. I really wanted to see you at work because I didn't want like another,
But she was wearing this and that.
I really wanted it to be about the album, about the music.
Right. I'm reading this from my editor friend Chops. That's what they call me. I made a copy of our version of the video while I do Diane's changes, so don't worry if you want it back the way it was. Love you and hope the press has no void sections. Yeah. We make up our own little, I know way too much about this whole editing mess. I really need not to. But Lammy Lamb, wanted to talk to you before you leave for Europe. Page me or call me when you get, okay. I'm just gotta check all these. Now I'm done. It's the last one. Just gotta write. Okay.
Hello. Hey, what's up? Where are you? You are? Okay, well just call me. Okay. That's fine, yeah, I don't quite know what I'm doing, so I'll be in DC at some point. Right. Okay, that's cool. Alright. Bye. Have fun.
Okay. Putting mine away.
Who is Mariah Carey as an artist?
Oh dear, you're starting right off. Don't pull no punches, do you?
Well, I don't want to waste your voice.
No, I'm sorry. Can I just preface this whole thing by saying that I've had about 3 hours sleep over the past, well, I guess the day before I got a few more hours sleep, but I've been consistently sleepless since I got back and started promoting and doing all this stuff. And so if I come across a little bit,
this isn't 60 minutes. Just talk.
No, but I'm just afraid because sometimes people will take advantage of that. I mean, I don't know you, Craig. I don't want to.
I'm telling you, I will not do that.
Okay.
I've had people like reveal stuff to me, like, big artists, I won't say who, and call me back later and say, no, I was just.
I mean, I'm the type that would do that, yeah.
I said, fine.
I just want to preface it because sometimes when I'm tired, I'm not, I mean, you know what I've done today, right? Did they tell you, did they brief you on like what my day's been?
I'm not here to judge you.
No, not to judge me, just to let you know, so you'll be like that, you'll get it from where I'm coming. I've done like 2 major interviews. I went to bed at 7:30 in the morning because I was with Joe and Clue and Dora in the studio. At 4 o'clock in the morning. Prior to that, I was editing the remix video with Senna, the editor, my friend, my Moroccan homegirl, my biracial homegirl. And prior to that, I was working on this video with Christine. And all the while approving photos and doing phoners for Italian press. So I'm kind of like really exhausted.
Trust me, I'm not here to get Mariah Carey. I just want you to express who you are as a recording artist.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Can I ask you a question only because I'm just obsessed with this?
I'm asking.
Can I just ask you one question?
Yeah,
what nationality are you?
I'm black. But both my parents, people think that my great-grandmother was white.
Right.
So I guess there's like some strong, and I mean I have like Native American. And
yeah.
But I'm not, I don't, one parent's not white.
Right.
We can still bond, but
no, we can still bond. I was just curious because I was wondering if you were Latino or wondering.
Come up to me all the time, like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. People do that to me too. I don't speak Spanish either, but they do that to me too.
Slow down.
Yeah, because people know that my father's part Venezuelan, so they think like I happen to speak. Yeah, but I didn't because he didn't grow up with his father. He grew up with Addie Carey, on 137th and Lenox.
Okay, well let's talk about something fun.
Okay.
Let's talk about your remixes. Let's talk about.
I'm sorry. I'm relaxing, and that's my way of relaxing, so that just so you know.
Well, what would you like to talk about?
No, remixes are fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm just coming off of. That's why I just explained to you where I was, because when you're looking at the Avid, and there's like a whole different zone. So I'm going into the new zone, which is Craig's zone.
I'm with you.
Okay, here we are.
Well, okay, tell me this. Why on the Heartbreaker remix? And my tape is working, right?
Let me make sure. You tell me. Yeah, it's going.
Okay.
It's rolling. I don't see a red light though.
Don't make any elaborate hand gestures over the mic.
Well, I can't help it. That's my thing, you know?
But like, tell me why on the Heartbreaker remix, why Junior instead of working with David again?
Because David was, well, Junior has always expressed a desire to work together, and a lot of my friends know him. You know, I have a lot of different friends who maybe work in clubs, or I've come across him wherever and say, you know, he really wants to work with you, you guys should get together. And I've just had this relationship with David for such a really long time, and this time around, this whole album was sort of like, no one even knew I was doing it. And then the last minute I was like, David, can you do a remix for me? And he was overseas, and it would have been like 2 weeks. Actually, I think it was Julio Iglesias. But whatever, he was over there, and then he also goes over there every summer to do his promotional stuff. And he couldn't come for like a week or a couple days later, and we literally had a deadline. Like, I know that if I go with David in one night, like, it's done. Like, that type of record, those house records are actually my favorite, almost my favorite thing to do, because it's very free. It's very like, when I do those vocals, that's why some of them are a mess. I just sing whatever. I barely edit it. I barely like redo stuff, and I spend a lot of time in the background vocals and arranging the backgrounds and singing them. And I had the girls who sing with me there, and I mean, we just really, we're like 4 in the morning recording like tripling tracks of backgrounds, and just, it's like very free form creative expression over a track that's very out there in terms of being different from the original or even the hip-hop version.
Right.
So when I sang my lead on that, that was like 5:30 after a nice bottle or 2 of wine.
Which lead? The lead on the Heartbreaker?
Yeah, on most of them.
Okay.
On Heartbreaker, on Fantasy, on whatever. I mean, Fantasy, I was in my own house, but you know, I was like downstairs, and usually like when I sing, everything has to be clean and perfect, and I mean, I would never have a drink or anything, or you know, do whatever. I just can't. My voice has to be clear, and that kind of stuff screws with my creativity. But for some reason, on the house remixes, I can just do whatever and be exhausted and just keep going. And so anyway, this came about. David wasn't available, and I don't want it to sound like, oh, so Junior was second. It wasn't that Junior was second choice. It was that we had always wanted to work together, but at this particular moment, it just came together. So I still would like to do something with David on this album, because I think we have a special chemistry. But I think that my thing still comes across on this remix. I think it's not like, whoa, what's Mariah doing? Like, it suddenly doesn't sound similar to her other stuff. I mean, I think, and someone else was telling me that today too, like, with this, you get my essence. You get that, okay, I see what she does with David, but it's also very much about her if she's working with someone else. And
well, why the decision for the Val Young? Where did that come from?
That actually was Junior's idea, because he wanted to use the but that's one of my favorite songs, like from growing up. And when he started doing it, I said, you know what, we should slow it down, and I should just go, I've been thinking about the way, like, I just figured like it would be hot to slow it down. And again, those remixes are so much fun for me to do creatively. Even the backgrounds, like going, give me a love, give me a love. Like, it was so hard to do that stuff fast, and to come up with all the little parts that we did were really, but it's fun. It's like a very different outlet for me.
Well, yeah, I think you can really hear that you're much looser on that. I mean, I really started, you know, I always liked your stuff, but when I started hearing, like, you know, really starting with the stuff that you were doing with David Cole.
Yeah.
Like I think maybe the Make It Happen remix with the Dr. Love going on in the background.
Yeah.
That's when I really started to, you know, I guess really started to be very interested in watching your career and stuff like that.
Right.
What about David? I mean, like, what kind of influence did...
Wait, drown out this noise.
What kind of influence did David Cole have, like, on your musical development and everything?
Well, David and I worked together at a really early point in my career, but I think what was good about working with David was that he and I got each other in terms of our references, in terms of our points of view. Like, certain producers I've worked with, they are either one way or the other. Like, Walter is very pop, you know, Puffy has hip-hop references and R&B, you know, and that came at a different point in my life too, when I could make the decision to work with someone like Puffy. But I mean, David And I sort of snuck that in. And I think it was cool because he got me. Like, we really understood each other, and we had a really special relationship. And even like a lot of the girls who sang with me on the backgrounds of some of those songs, like, we all really miss him, and we all really feel that loss, you know, because it's like he was just a very kind of, he was a great musician, but he also had a lot of pop culture sensibility, you know. So.
And so, I mean, was it hard after, you know, because I think you've talked in the past about how important, God, now I can't even think of the record. I'm sorry, I've been looking for New York apartments all day today, so you have to excuse me for being sick.
That's okay.
But, like, you talked about the importance of emotions in your career because, you know, you had done the ballad thing, but that was like a huge kind of dance record. It did the R&B stuff, and, you know, so that you had that intense relationship with him, and then for that loss so early, I think when, obviously, you know, the stuff you all did incredible. Anytime You Need a Friend, just amazing stuff, and there could have been so much there, and then he's gone, you know, does that...
Yeah. It was very hard, and it came at a time, it was very unexpected and very hard and very sad, you know, for a lot of us who knew him and who were, you know, touched by him. He was a special person. But I think it earmarks sort of an important thing in my career that people sort of tend to gloss over. I think when people do like the journalistic job on me, and I'm not including you at all by any means because you're asking me totally different questions than most people do, but some people who do the surface journalism thing, or the surface, I'm a critic and this is what I'm supposed to think, it's like she did ballads and then suddenly she did Butterfly and she became like this hip-hop girl. It's like people who didn't really listen to those other albums don't know, you know, or people who don't have, this is what I was trying to explain to somebody today, people who don't have a frame of reference, who don't listen to hip-hop radio, who don't go to clubs, who don't go to even clubs where they play my house remixes, you know, they listen to maybe alternative music, or they listen to rock or classic rock or whatever tapes they happen to be working on, you know, they don't know the subtlety of the fact that Dream Lover was a loop of a, you know, a Blind Alley, which was also a Big Daddy Kane record called Ain't No Half Stepping, which in turn became Dream Lover, you know, co-produced by Dave Hall, who had only done Brand Nubian and Mary J. Blige. So it's like, that wasn't like I had suddenly done like the, here's the producer who has done, you know, multiple records with Whitney or, you know, Madonna or Celine Dion, or people that are like known as that type of singer, you know what I mean? It's like this was something kind of new for me to be doing, but the pop press would rather focus on, oh well, she did songs like Hero and now she's in a video with Mace, sitting on Mace's lap. And it's also, I think, a black-white perception thing, and I think that a lot of it has to do with me being visually perceived as white by a lot of people who don't understand about mixed race people. And that's been a gripe of mine for a long time, because I think especially early on I took a lot of heat for people saying, well, she's not acknowledging she's black, she's saying, you know, she's this, she's that, and I never didn't acknowledge what I was. I always said, look, my father is half black, half Venezuelan, my mother's Irish. People morphed that into black Venezuelan because obviously they couldn't fathom African American and half Venezuelan and Irish. And it was like, what did you want, a sticker on my album cover? It's like, you know, by the way, in case you're prejudiced, don't buy her if you don't like X, Y, or Z.
Well, would you at least say that, at least, you know, for whatever reason, and I mean, it makes perfect sense in terms of marketing, but, you know, I mean, nobody went out of their way. I don't think it was really sold, and you probably didn't have much to do with this at the very beginning of your career, but it probably wasn't.
I was very upset by certain things that were written in the press, like another white girl trying to sound black and things like that. And when I had a luncheon at one point for like a lot of R&B press, I addressed those issues with those people. And I mean, it got written about a little bit, but you know, when you're dealing within a corporate structure and you're basically a teenage girl that is starting out surrounded by a lot of powerful people, you are not at the helm of how you are perceived. And also, I think at this point, people are a lot more accepting of me just because I've been here in people's face for a lot longer. In the beginning, it was like Vision of Love actually went #1 R&B first and then pop. And so it's not like when people say, oh, you went to this R&B direction. Vision of Love was a big R&B record. I mean, people who you would not expect to talk to me about that song talk to me about that song. Like Snoop is in my remix video. He and I had a long discussion about that song.
Oh, really?
Jay-Z and I had a long discussion. Like, people talk to me about how, like, they remember when that came out and different things about that record, and I forget, you know what I mean? Like, because I'll be like, oh, you know, sometimes I'll feel like, oh, I don't know. People just bring me down because I do a lot of press where people are like, oh, you made this radical move on Butterfly. I'm like, well, had you really listened, not that you care to listen to the different things in the first album, or songs like Sent From Up Above, that was much more that could have been a single. I mean, it could have been a single, but it wouldn't have probably done very well pop, but it would have been a probably decently, you know, a pretty big urban single, or songs that didn't even get to my first album because I was told they were too urban.
Right.
So, I mean, like, I understand from a marketing point of view, even with artists who don't have this racial ambiguity issue, they often are skewed middle of the road.
Right.
So, and I, as a songwriter, I'm capable of writing, you know, more mainstream stuff, or adapting a hip-hop record to be my thing, or a house record, or probably a country song. You know what I mean? Or even, like, no one knows, but I've written some alternative things that no one knows about. I mean, like, I'm just pretty much whatever. I'm a musical person. I grew up with a multitude of influences, and I enjoy that as a writer. And see, the thing about it is that people know that, and people, especially back then, were like, look, write us a big ballad where you're singing long notes. And I know how to do that. But that might not be necessarily what's the most stimulating creatively for me, but I know how to do it. Sometimes it is. I mean, Butterfly, the song Butterfly, to me is very powerful and very poignant because it represents a point in my life that was very, very heavily, very laden with drama. It was really an intense time. And I just feel like lyrically, this is all the drama.
Are we here?
We're here, but we can get out whenever, as long as the people in the street aren't waiting. We can walk upstairs and talk in the lounge if you want. Whatever you want to do. Are we holding up traffic?
Not really.
I mean, at all? Because last night...
Traffic's fine.
Okay. Let me know if we are and we'll get out. I'm so hungry.
Well, don't you... Can they get you something to eat? Or?
Yeah, they're getting me something. I'm just sick. I eat the same places. I'm in the same place every night. But,
well, I mean, one thing, you know, like with Whitney's last album, she worked with a lot of hip-hop producers, whatever, and it was, the press play on that was kind of like, oh, she's freshening up her sound, hooray. You know, whereas when you work with hip-hop producers, it's all like, oh, she's trying to do this and that.
Right.
Do you think that's because, I mean,
I think some people in the
criticism, and I'm just saying, because you're perceived as being kind of more white for whatever reasons, you know, for whatever unfair reason. I think white people are more criticized when they turn to black influences than when black people are, like that Offspring song, "Pretty Fly for a White Guy." You know, anytime it's perceived as somebody white taking on black influences, then they usually set themselves up for more criticism.
I don't think I got that criticism from critics who understand the subtleties of doing a record like Breakdown with Bone Thugs and Harmony, and me adapting to their style, and how pretty intricate that was, you know, and how innovative a move that was, even though they did not promote that single very much. You know, there were 2 songs released from that album 7 months apart. So, I mean, that will always hurt me, because to me, I mean, that album had a lot of my heart and soul in it, you know what I mean? But you know what? My first single was a #1 R&B song, so I can't say that. I know that there was a conscious decision to go more pop after that.
My All and Butterfly.
No, I mean from Vision of Love.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To like those other songs.
First single off that, okay.
No, yeah, Honey. I was told I took a left turn with Honey, and I was like, what? To me, this is very my style of record. It's a happy, up-tempo record. But to me, maybe because, like, I don't listen to pop radio. I don't listen to, like, you know, I pretty much am more of just, like, I could tell you more about, like, Jay-Z's album than the, you know, whatever pop group you want to name's album. I don't focus on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know, and I
But
can't.
why is it so hard for people to believe, do you think? Why don't
Because they
people
look
believe
at me, and it's the same drama I've dealt with my whole life. Like, they look at me and they perceive me as one way, but don't think it doesn't come the other way. I mean, like, it's like, I can't generalize. So I think that everybody has a different view and a different, different perspective on me and what I am, and maybe some people don't even care at all. More people don't care than care. But I mean, I think that because visually, the image of me sitting on Mace's lap in that video and standing there with Puffy, to maybe somebody in middle America who hadn't seen me in that way before, it was like, why is she doing that, and who are these people, and what is she trying to do? And maybe some other people who didn't. I mean, anyone who heard Fantasy with Old Dirty Bastard in 1995
Right.
knew that that was what I was into, and you couldn't, and that shocked a lot of people, and but for the most part, the masses didn't hear it, which is why I put it on that #1's record.
Right.
I was talking to someone today from a magazine who didn't know that version of the song, and to me it's like, when I think of Fantasy, I think of that. When I walk down the street, people go, me and Mariah go back like babies with pacifiers.
And then you also did remixes like for different cities, right? Because I know DC had one where ODB said
Yeah,
DC. And
yeah.
New York.
He did a lot of stuff. I mean, and that's before he was known necessarily to the masses as, like, you know,
It's crazy.
yeah, I knew because I was a Wu-Tang fan, you
Right.
know. I don't know why it's hard for people to believe. All I know is what my reality is. My reality is I grew up as an interracial child. My reality is I grew up with a lot of disturbing imagery around me, a lot of stuff that most kids in suburbia did not see.
Like what?
Things that I choose not to talk about because they're not necessarily...
Y'all want to come inside? We're here for only 30 minutes.
Okay,
And then we have
let me
to
just
go to
finish
the
this
other
one
thing.
thought before I forget. I'll come right. Because they're not necessarily about what I did.
So
It's
it upsets about other people around.
Other
you, 'cause it's
people
like
are-
you're talking badly
I'm
about
talking about people in my family and things that impacted upon me because people made certain decisions and exposed me to certain things. I'm not talking about my mother. I'm talking about other surrounding things. And as is in a lot of families similar to mine, you know, we've got a lot of disjointed stuff going on. I experience a lot of stuff. My reality has been very altered since I was a little girl. I mean, I grew up very fast in terms of my perception of the world and my understanding of what it's like to be mixed, what it's like to hear how white people speak about black people when they're not in the room, and vice versa. And so, like, I really have a unique perception, and also being sort of the first person who's so ambiguous looking and, you know, and of mixed race to become a pop culture, I don't want to call myself any name, but you can say what you think I am. I don't know, star. I don't know what this is. This thing is, I don't see myself that way, but, and what's, to me, the most important accomplishment that I've made or contribution is when I read a card or a letter from a little kid from Queens or wherever that says, thank you for giving me a role model as an interracial, as a mixed person, because before you, I never knew that it was okay to be who I am. I never knew that I could make it and that I could achieve what you've achieved. I didn't have that role model. Like, when I was a little kid, I didn't have the person out there who I identified with completely, who made me feel like it's okay to be me. I felt like if my mother's family disowned my mom because of this, what does that make me? I felt like if I can't fit in to a certain thing because of the way I look, you know, everybody, you could be white and not fit into a school because of the way you look too. You could be overweight, you could be have other issues, but I think when race is involved, especially when it's black and white, it's very difficult. And I've experienced a lot of that much more early on in my career than now. I think people have come to accept me for what I am. I mean, that's how I'm feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, I know a lot of times, and I think, you know, even I've experienced this being kind of light-skinned and stuff, and people not sure, you know, just like you asked me. So it's like, I think, you know, it's sort of important to have acceptance.
Yes.
And do you think in some ways by, like, you know, really embracing that hip-hop side of you and working with people that is kind of like an acceptance? I mean, do you feel kind of like you're,
I feel like
finally accept, you know, you're kind of
what it makes me feel like is I'm doing music that I like and doing music that makes me put a smile on my face and moves me. I mean, when I do a ballad that moves me too. But normally it's the songs that are either more like gospel influenced or the hip hop, like the Crybaby song on my album with Snoop, like, or the remix with Missy and Brat. Like, those are the ones that make me really have. I mean, I have a good time. These guys want me to go inside because Joe's upstairs. We should go up.
But doesn't it make you feel good that like Snoop? Oh, are they gonna?
They'll open it. I mean, you can open it. Doesn't matter.
But doesn't it feel good that like Snoop likes, you know, Vision of Love, that he mentioned that?
Yeah, well,
or like Brat likes Underneath the Stars or something like that.
No, I mean, Brat is like one of my closest friends. Thank you. And she was one of the people who first made me feel like, okay, this is another young girl who's doing what she wants, who's having fun, who's being successful, and who's also happy.
Okay.
Like, why do I have to be miserable? And you know, like, it's not penance. I don't. Oh dear.
So was there a guilt at being successful at first?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a guilt. It was just let's wait till we get up there because this takes time. Oh, this elevator is completely.
Right track. I did a feature on Eve for Spin a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you did?
And we went to a mall, so the whole time I'm like running behind her with a tape recorder, and she didn't stop for once. We never sat down at any point in the interview.
Really?
Yeah.
I won't put you through that.
She was fun.
Have you interviewed Brat?
No, I never interviewed Brat. If she'd ever release her album, maybe I would.
She is. She's working.
Because I pitched it several times and then, you know, pitched a piece on her, and then the album doesn't come out, so it's kind of like falling through.
No, she's great.
No, I love her. I think she's very, I thought her second album was so underrated. Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
well.
it's also like when you're on a. I'm in here?
Yeah.
Okay. Life is so strange when you don't know. It's my anthem.
So you want to breathe for a second? Or?
Well, I don't think we have them. I don't
Right.
think I have a full second.
Go ahead. So
Okay.
you can get one question in.
Well, we were talking about, you know, you were telling me about Brat and why you connected with her so much, you know.
Oh, we're gonna elaborate on that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You said because you saw her and she was so happy, and you
Oh,
thought...
right. Well, I met her during the making of the Daydream album,
Mm-hmm.
and I might have just been finished, or maybe it was already. Might have already been out. We did that remix, but she came to my house, and it was just like we connected like immediately. Like it was just we had a really cool creative vibe together. But just even like Jermaine, Brat, Wanye, the rest of the guys from Boyz II Men, like us being all young artists, you know, in the same business. I had been at it a little bit longer, but I felt like I wasn't as free or as happy or as successful because I wasn't really living my own life. And it was just like, I guess, sort of a catalyst. You know, that period of time was like, there were several catalysts that helped me get to another level of recognizing that it wasn't normal. My experience was not normal.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't want to put it all on her because that's not good for her politically. With that, now I'm coming out, so please don't do that. But you know what I mean? Just in terms of everything that I went through during that time, like it was just like, you know, just to give an example, it's like when you go out on stage and you have all this like amazing, glorious feeling of adoration from the fans, and then if you go out afterwards and have a party, you feel great and you relax and you go to sleep. But if you do that and then you go and you sit in a car and you have like tense energy around you and it's like all people who are maybe, you know, corporate and not about having fun and everybody's nervous and uptight and you're there and you don't get the feeling of, wow, I just did something amazing and I feel great. You get the feeling of I just did something amazing and now here I am back in my weird reality. You know, so I had that and those guys had the other thing. And so I just wanted to feel like, I don't know, I just wanted to feel, I wanted to enjoy my life a little bit. I was really miserable for a long time.
Well, on Petals, you know, you talk about the maze of misery, and you talk about like a little brother and little sister. What is that about?
Well, it's hard for me to completely be specific about who I'm talking about in that song, but let's just say that there was a period of time when I was only kind of around a few people who were in my immediate circle who we all kind of had the same, we were all kind of going through the same stuff. And now I don't see them anymore. And so it's, you know, it was kind of like a sad feeling, but it's hard for me to be really specific about that because that's yeah.
If Butterfly is seen as an album of sort of like, you know, coming to your own and sort of trying to break free and those type of things, those type of metaphors, do you think Rainbow could be considered about surviving or about thriving?
I think, yeah. I mean, did I tell you, everything's blending into one right now, but did I tell you about that I was doing this album initially for my movie?
No.
Okay. This Heartbreaker was initially a song that I wrote for All That Glitters, which starts filming in the spring, which was supposed to start filming last summer, but there were problems with the script. And the movie company, was really behind it and really wanted it to be right. So, you know, I'm not used to that. You see the process I'm used to, which is like, okay, this, let's go, we're done. And that's like a whole different thing. So I had banked everything on, this is when I'll have my summer single out, and then the movie, you know, like my usual recording schedule, but it didn't work out that way. So I had Heartbreaker half written, and Clue had given me the track. He actually had it for somebody else for a remix, because you know his album? He had a lot of songs.
That's not what a thug would say.
Yeah, that's not what a thug would do. But that was his line for a minute. Now his new line is "Don't get stupid on me." But whatever, he's got a new line every week. But he was going to use that for a remix for Mace, and that record he did on that.
With Foxy and
yeah. So my friend Tracy was like, you should play that for Mariah, because like that's really her bag. That really sounds like. Actually, the remix was of a song that they looped, you know, Tom Tom,
right?
Yeah. So you know, people now associate me with that, and this is Attack the Name Game,
right? And
so I heard it and I was like, yeah, that's, of course I could write over it, but honestly that took me a lot longer to write than any other song on the record. Plus I did 3, 4 versions of it, so it was a long thing.
Were you scared people were going to think it sounded too much like Fantasy?
I knew that it had that same vibe, but to me, if you really break it down, it's more like Dream Lover, because when I think of Fantasy, I think of the Old Dirty Bastard version, which just has the in heaven. Like, I almost forgot that it had that sweet, sweet, because I don't even listen to that anymore. Like, if I am to listen to that record, I listen to the remix, which is really responsible for more than half the sales of that single, and really drove that. And that's,
how do you know that?
Because you look at the accounts and which account sold more, and you look at
like an urban account.
Yeah, that was a huge urban record, and that was like a double platinum single. With this single, they haven't shipped. They've only shipped under 1 million, so there's no way that it can do that amount of numbers.
I see, because they want the album to sell, so it's
right. But it sold more in its first week than Fantasy did in its first week, and I attribute a lot of that to it's about 50-50, almost 60-40 people playing the remix. And so people who don't understand what the value of those remixes are to me, they're whole different records. I mean, this one more so than the Fantasy remix, honestly. because...
But what is the value to you, not just in terms of the sales, but in terms of personally?
No, personally,
Okay.
I enjoy it so much more. I mean, honestly though, when I was doing the original Heartbreaker and Jay-Z came in and did his part, we were all like, yay! Like, we were all like little fans, like little excited fans, and Jay loved that. I mean, Jay would not be on something he didn't like.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's got a lot of integrity as an artist. He's very particular about his stuff. So he came in, he heard it, he was like, whoa, I didn't expect it to be like that. Because I think sometimes critics get a little bit cynical, like, oh, it sounds like this, oh, it sounds like that. And yes, it does have that. I wrote both of those songs.
Right.
I have a style of writing. Just like someone who writes folk music tends to lean in the same melodic or chord structural direction. But to me, the chorus is more like Dream Lover. If you think of it, heartbreaker, you got the best of me. Dream lover, come rescue me. It's less like sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. It's more like Dream Lover. But they're all in the same vein because I wrote them.
Right.
And when I was looking for someone to co-write with me on that song, I couldn't find anybody because I was like, you know what, it's my own style that I'm emulating. It's not like some other style. But my point about Jay in the studio was, when he came in and he did his thing, it was like, wow, like he wrote nothing down. He did it off the top of his head. He was just like, going off of my lyrics of what I was saying, and that's why he's going, she wanna shop with Jay, play box with Jay. Like, he's like going off, and he was like, yo, what'd I just say? Like, he would forget what he said, but he wouldn't write it down, and he just did it all off the top of his head. And it was an exciting record for me. I mean, people can say what they want to say, but to me, I still like that version of the song. I still listen to that song. I like the little give me your love, and that part isn't a sample. It sounds like it's a sample from something, but it just was like something that enhanced the music. I think it's cute. I like that record. The remix with Over Ain't No Fun is my favorite.
Okay.
But why? Because it's just more, I like how the chorus fits over that loop better.
Okay.
The chorus stands out more. It's more clean, and it's got clean in terms of there's less going on musically. We couldn't break down that other loop because you couldn't isolate the sounds, because we couldn't recreate those keyboard sounds when we played them. We had to keep the loop continuous. So that's why it was even harder to write, because it's a 2-bar loop. So I had to really be creative with the sections and what they were going to be, and the ad-libs, and Clue and his ad-libs and all that stuff. So I like the remix best because I just love the vibe of that song. Like, I love hearing it on the radio. I think it sounds hot. I like to hear it in the clubs. I like when they mix it with Ain't No Fun. Like, it's just like when you hear Ain't No Fun in a club, it's pretty like derogatory song about women. And we flipped it and turned it around. And when I was writing it, she and everybody else was like, what was that song that it came from? What did he say on that record? And we were all like, don't worry, don't worry. We're like, you know, it's going to be cool. And I think it's actually good because we did make it about girls. And Snoop made an appearance in the remix video. And like, he's fine with it. He thinks it's, you know, he's like into it. And everybody really likes that version. So I kind of like how now in the days of the Answer records, the girl power records, it's that, but it's not, it's without me having to go there completely, because I'm not really going there, but just by nature of what it is, when they mix the two songs together. Like, now in a club, when that would come on in a club, all the girls would be like, woo, but then we're kind of like, oh, we're getting played on this song. But then again, now it's sort of like empowering. And even when you see the video, the way Brat's being, and she's a bride, and Snoop is she's an angry bride, and Snoop's like, what are you mad? Like, and the little girls are throwing rice at him, and like, it's kind of retribution. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's really pretty great. So, you waiting for me to run in there? Is he ready for me?
No, we're waiting to make contact.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Well, didn't so much. I can't even find my question.
And I tend to ramble because I figure you can extract statements from whatever.
We're ready? Oh, we should go right now.
Okay. You want to walk? Okay.
So maybe you want to wait in the car?
What about E.T.?
What?
No, they did a piece on me for E.T. tonight.
So tell me about this album. I mean, like, you know, because I'm a critic. I, you know, write just straight album reviews for like The Voice and Vibe and Spin and all that. So I can tell you now, like, what some critics are gonna try to quote-unquote get you for on this album.
Okay, what do you think they're going to try and get me for?
Well, like, I think there's going to be criticism that you worked with Diane Warren and David Foster.
On one song. Well, I wrote... See, the one song that They Can't Take That Away, that song, I basically went to Diane with that song. My issue is I've always written most of my ballads with Walter. We are not working together anymore.
Right.
And I had this idea in my head and on tape recorder. And I had basically 90% of the song written. And I needed someone to play it. And, you know, so I went to Diane. I said, you know, I have this thing. Will you do it with me? She doesn't collaborate. She doesn't co-write. She only writes for people. She's been asking to work with me for a long time. And she makes fun of me. She's like, you've written more number ones than me. I'm gonna.
So she doesn't collaborate.
No, she never collaborates.
Oh, okay.
She only gives people songs.
People song, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
She never. I mean, it might have been like the last time she did it was like 4 years ago or something. But it's not something she likes to do. She likes to write her own songs in her little room, and that's it. And that's why that song that we wrote together, Mariah's theme, is very me.
Why'd you say it like that?
Because that's what I called it. I've gone through so many different incarnations, but that's, I mean, that song was called They Can Try. It was called They Can't Take That Away From Me. It was called Can't Take That Away. And I liked They Can Try because Can't Take That Away seemed like it was too common. And then I threw Mariah's theme on it at the last minute.
That's a beautiful song.
Thank you. But the point is, we worked out the last bit of it together, the bridge, and then I was like, okay, and then I'll go up. It's very my style of song. It's less, I mean, her style, like her typical style would be like a Because You Loved Me, or that new NSYNC song that's out now. Right, it's more that. My style is much more this. This is very Vision of Love / album cuts that have never been released off like previous albums, like Vanishing or Outside, which I don't know if you ever heard. Like, you know, it's.
I love Vanishing. I'm not sure about Outside.
Yeah, Outside was on Butterfly.
Okay.
But I tend to write in that style sometimes, but this is like a more commercial version. So I'm glad that I work with Jimmy and Terry on it, because I think that overall, the ballads on this album, except the one I did with David and Diane,
So you collaborated with them on that one, or?
I collaborated with who? Which ones?
Dave. No need to mention.
No, I'm jumping around. Oh, I collaborated with David. No, I did collaborate with Diane on that other song.
One. Okay,
but it was it's different than when Diane Warren gives someone a song and says, hey, I got a great song for you. I don't do that. She's done that to me. I don't take song. I prefer to write mine, especially something like that. It's a very personal song.
Okay, but why wouldn't you take a song from somebody if they had a great song?
If I felt it was great, undeniably, I couldn't write something better for myself, I might. But I think that my fans, my true fans, know the difference when I'm singing something I wrote. I mean, I have never sung something anyone else wrote except when I did that Whitney duet or the remakes. And like, just like the feedback that even the girl Teresa that was there tonight that you met, she started out as a fan. She wrote notes, she came to concerts, she did all these things.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
And she finally started working as a receptionist for a management company like 4 years ago. And when I left that whole situation, they were like, well, you can stay here. She's like, well, basically, I came here for Mariah. I wouldn't do this for anybody else, so I'm leaving. And she came, and now she basically, you know, runs my office and takes direction from Louise and does everything. So she's one of the really, truly devoted people. And, like, I bounce things off her sometimes. Like, how would you feel if so-and-so and so? And she's like, I mean, I personally like that you write your songs. I personally like, if, you know, can you write most of them? You know what I mean? Like, she, like, really, there's a difference. So anyway, with that personal, Diane doesn't even know I called it Mariah's theme. You know, we worked it out. I finished the lyrics alone. It's basically more from me than, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from her, but that particular song is much more my thing. And then doing it with Jimmy and Terry, who really felt the song, like, you did this with her? Like, it's much more, they're like, we're getting your vibe from it. After Tonight, that I did with David and Diane, is very a collabo of the three of us. Like, that I can...
like the big pop ballad of the album.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that that'll ever be a single. It's going to be a theme song for a show in Japan. It's like, I doubt that I would put that out in America, because it's just not my favorite song off the album. But,
when you worked with Jimmy and Terry, did you mostly work with Jimmy?
Both of them.
Okay.
Well...
because people usually just work with one or the other.
Well, I work with Big Jim, who's another guy who...
Jim, right?
Yeah, and we all kind of sat in the room together, and we bounced ideas off each other. Actually, Jimmy gave a really nice quote to Yvette Shore today.
I'm sure Yvette would give it to me.
Did she give it to you?
Yeah, she said she's going to call me Monday.
Yeah, it was really nice. In the making of this album, musically, creatively, was doing the big ballads, quote unquote, 99% of them with Jimmy and Terry.
Well, you had almost done a tribute to them with
Always Be My Baby remix.
Yeah.
Say Through the Sands of Time.
Oh,
and stuff
definitely.
like that,
And that loop was
yeah.
their
Right.
song.
Right.
Yeah, it was. Do
Tell Me
you
If You Still
feel
Care.
the same way too?
Tell Me If You
Yeah.
Still Care.
But they. Do you have that collection of their CDs of all the songs they've written?
No, I think that's just. I think that was just a promotional thing.
But you got.
But I'm a long-term Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis fan, so I know all this. So like SOS Band.
But do you know
Sherelle
like the obscure ones like you still.
Oh yeah, Tell Me Houston. Tell Me.
Like,
that whole album was great.
But
Fantasy and Heartbreak and all that stuff.
that was on her album, song Fantasy. I didn't even know that.
Fantasy and Heartbreak. They did, because that was back during the time that they used to do half sides. They did a side for her. It's one of the most brilliant pieces of '80s dance music. It's Used to Hold Me So Tight.
That's my favorite.
And I'd rather spend the bad times with you than spend the good times with someone new.
Oh, I vaguely remember that.
Fantasy and Heartbreak. And one other song, and then they did all the Patty Austin sides, like
yeah, like in the heat of it.
Right.
But see, I'll sing when I sang "Used to Hold Me So Tight" to them. Like, whoa, that's an obscure one. Like, you know that?
Right.
Like, I mean, I would sit there and sing their little all the Alexander O'Neill records, but obscure ones, but they're 4 CD things. You should get it if you can, because like sometimes you forget.
Right.
No, you know, in going through, it's really cool to listen.
I know. Yeah, they're very unsung. But you know, like you're gonna get a lot of heat over Bliss. Because everybody can say, oh, she's doing those showy, high notes again.
But you know what?
But black radio's going to love it, and it's going to be played on like Quiet Storm until the end of time.
Exactly.
But the critics are not going to like it.
Well, you know what? The critics didn't like... You know what? I agree with a lot of the critics who said early on I was showy in terms of using that aspect of my voice a lot and over singing. I don't have I don't disagree.
Like in what record would you say that you did that?
I would say the second album, I felt like I got to prove something. But you know what? I was really young when I did those records, and I was really like David loved that part of my voice. David Cole was really like, sing your highest note. Like, he was very encouraging me to do that. And I think that's because he was a musician and he just couldn't fathom the actual note, that it was so high, and he liked that. And a lot of people like that aspect. It's something that not everybody can do.
Right.
And so...
Has that talent ever scared you? Like the fact that you can produce such great sound, has that ever been... But you, at the same time, it's like you have this force within you, but like you were a young girl trying to make your way through the industry, trying to write your own stuff. Obviously a very difficult thing to do, yet at the same time you have this great power. Is there ever any kind of...
Well, I think in the very, very beginning, like I saw this thing I did the other day, for the NBA playoffs, the first time I was ever on TV, and they're saying "America the Beautiful," and at the end I go like, "The shiny sea," real high note that I can't do right now because I've had no sleep. But I went for it, and I went for it more than I go for it on live TV these days, because you can't control it. Now people know me, but then I was like, hey, no one knows who I am, and I felt like I was rooting for myself, like watching it, like, wow, like I'm proud of her, like she just really went for this thing, you know what I mean? I was going for it. I was trying to establish myself as a singer.
You know, for the longest time you weren't known for singing live. You weren't even known for doing that many, live television appearances. But I think with the Butterfly album, it's like every time you turn on the TV, you were there singing, and you were really going for it. And obviously, times your voice, in terms of just the sheer vocals, was stronger than others, as things will fluctuate.
Right.
But you always stood there and really just stayed there and tried to sell the song.
Right.
And do you think that kind of doing all those live dates and sort of dealing with your voice when it's not technically perfect, do you think that's helped you as a singer?
I haven't done that many. And the other thing is, when you're dealing with, first of all, my instrument is it's not standard. Even like, let's say there's a girl who's a great belter, and she can belt and do all things in a high register and has even a deep register. The whisper register of my voice, like that I use on Bliss, is something that is so fragile and unique and bizarre. Like, sometimes if I have a cold and I have no voice whatsoever, I can do high notes and do anything in that register, but speak not at all.
Okay.
Sometimes when my airy voice is real clear, like I was explaining to Joe tonight, like I can't do tonight, that's not as good.
I did a feature on Kelly Price, and she called you the Queen of Air. She was saying, but in a nice way.
No.
But she's saying you taught her how to sing, I guess, in a
breathy
breathy way.
Yeah,
that
was
was
nice
like your
of her.
trademark. Where did that come? How did you develop that?
Actually, that came about, and I have to call someone else the queen of air, which is Cindy Mizell, who is one of the best backup singers in the business, and a great lead singer as well. Who never.
I've had enough.
Yeah.
This could be the night.
Yeah, and she, when I was a little, like, 17-year-old girl walking around with barely any shoes, like my shoe, like, she heard my stomach growling in a session. Like, we were doing a session for T.M. Stevens in, like, I don't know, 1988 or something, and I was, like, literally, like, this little kid, and she's looking at me like, what are you doing here, A? You know, B, like, how did you get to this session? And, like, singing with the top backups. She was already the top backup singer, and she still looks like a baby, and she's beautiful, and she's still amazing. But I was just, like, so honored to be singing with her that I was really, like, in awe, because I had heard about her and stuff. And I had, like, I loved a lot of her records that she had, not her records, but songs she had sung the back, like in the 80s. All the records we're talking about
dance records
had a lot of those, like, da, 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 like those airy background parts. And so that's where, like, I emulated a lot of things, probably a lot of the Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis records, probably a lot of Kashif, you know, a lot of that stuff. And Cindy sang on, you know, so many records.
A lot of those freestyle records and stuff. She sang a lot of dance stuff with Arthur Baker.
Yeah, a lot of the Arthur Baker stuff. So, you know, growing up with those things in my ear. And then I was singing with her. And so I think that singing with her, and just, like, I was very awed by her when I first met her, because she's this beautiful girl with this beautiful voice and this beautiful airy voice, and I always had that. Like, I think I might have more air in my voice, which is why I can lose my voice quicker, because a lot of it is harmonics. Like, right now that I'm tired, like, if I sing, yeah, you'll hear there's, like, a lot of like, there's a lot of different, like, that's why I can do that high thing. Because it's almost where my voice would go into a rasp, but instead it becomes this solid high tone. So,
well, do you think that's where you got your real?
So it's like hard to explain, like somewhere within there. Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that was, again, I told you, like, how I kind of became very interested in your music. I think part of that also was your focus on backing vocals. Because that's what I've always loved about Luther. And I think one of my favorite records of yours was the Christmas album, because the backing vocals on those were just so powerful. You know, why did you decide to? And that's not really a pop music thing at the time, to have such prominent backing vocals. Why was that important to you?
Well, even if you go back to Vision of Love and you listen to Vision of Love, which I have my criticisms with that record, the demo was better than the record. The demo was done in my little studio that the guy that I was signed to, he was a producer, I was signed to him. I ended up giving away a lot of money to him, but and royalties for years. But he had this little studio, and I did Vision of Love in there, and I sang on a PZM drum mic, which is, like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's a black drum mic that's like $25, and it's made for a flat to put on a drum, right? But that's all we had. So it picked up a lot of the harmonics in my voice. So when I was doing those on those background parts, it really picked up the air. So when I went to do the record, I couldn't recreate those backgrounds as well as they were on that little crappy studio. So we ended up using a lot of that. Even the high note is from that PZM drum mic. Like, I might just for experimentation go and try and sing into one of those little mics again and see what it sounds like, because it actually it picked up certain qualities. And then also when I was I have a problem with certain mics because I have such diversity in range. Like, I can belt, but the air is also not picked up as well by certain mics. It's hard to explain. It's like, and I've gone to my throat doctor, and he's shown me where it is in my voice that the high register comes from, where it is that, like, why I have a naturally rich voice when I'm speaking to you, and why that translates into me having this high register.
Well, I mean, vocally on this album, I think you seem very, you know, like, I've seen you in interviews and stuff, and it seemed like for a while you deliberately stayed away from the high notes. But even not just the high notes, but just from the criticism that, you know, I think people used to always say you did vocal gymnastics, whatever that meant. But on this album, you know, and I've only heard it, I just got it yesterday, but it just seems like you're just belting stuff out, and that you're not afraid of the high stuff, you're not afraid of just going for it. Am I just making it? Or
no, that's a valid point and comment. I mean, there are some songs where I'm barely singing. I'm not doing that, like Petals and
Right.
Ex-Girlfriend, I barely sing.
But like a Mariah's theme, I mean, at the end of that record, you're
Yeah.
just, you know.
Well, I felt very passionate about that particular song. That's another one I did all the backgrounds myself, and I was very kind of isolated in the studio, and I lived with it for a while. I started it in LA, I went to Capri, I lived with it back and forth, and at the end of it, I just felt like really it needed that kind of release. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was told to restrain myself a lot, like back in the days, like not on every song, but I think people preferred me to sing this straight and do this like this and don't do the high notes because like critics are ragging on you for doing too many of the high notes, and I know that, but I also know that was a different time. That was like 6 years ago or 7 years, and it's like, look, that's a part of my voice that I'm proud of. That's something that I have that's unique, and it's something that I was very influenced, obviously, by Minnie Riperton, you know, and Lisa Fisher is another one who's an amazing, like, she's incredible. She has such control over that range, and she's someone who I would have loved to see become a big star in her own right. And she's also a beautiful person from when I've met her. She and Cindy have done, you know, sang for Luther for years.
Yeah.
But, and she was very generous when she met me and very, like, warm, and, you know, there's a lot of people who could have been raggy, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people who could have had that, like, hey, you know, I've been doing this for years, blah, 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 blah. She was not like that.
Do you think there's any, I mean, I think it's interesting that, you know, you said you were told to restrain your voice in the studio, but then it seems like you were also kind of told to hold back and to restrain yourself in other ways, too. Does that strike you as kind of ironic? Or?
It's quite parallel, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but Weezy lived through it all. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like getting back to the live performance on TV stuff, that's not an easy thing to do. It's much harder than singing in my own concert live. Because when you're on TV, there are the variables of this is why my instrument is very sensitive. The smoke they use to pick up the lights, there has to be smoke. So it's either oil-based, chemical-based, whatever, and I am totally affected by, like, someone had a cigarette in the other room. I already feel it. Like,
but do you think that sometimes, I mean, because, you know, a lot of the greatest singers, American pop singers, have in some ways become better song stylists as they've started to lose some of their, you know, some of their just natural range. I mean, by being able to sell a song without just kind of hitting the notes and everything, but really bringing it home emotionally, that's actually helped their lyricism in some ways.
I think,
you know, you think about great, like, maybe like a Billie Holiday, or even like an Aretha Franklin. I mean, everybody has gone through, I think Whitney's a better singer now than she ever was, even though she doesn't have that kind of voice that she had on the first album or something, you know?
I think that on this album, it's the closest to how my voice was on the first album in terms of range. I mean, I don't know if you agree, except that I have more deep tones at this point. I mean, if you hear like the Mariah's theme and Bliss and Against All Odds, I mean, there was a clarity.
You're gonna get in trouble for that one too.
Yeah, they're gonna rag on me for that? Why? Because it's pop, or because
you read all your reviews? You don't have to
because
ask
they
me.
think it's too showy? Like,
I'm not saying that I feel that way. I'm just saying I just know the critic mentality. I know what, you know. It's like I've just done this so much. I know what people are gonna look.
yeah,
for
they're gonna
and stuff.
rag on that, perhaps.
But do you care?
You know what? I'm very sensitive, so maybe I'll care for the day. If I read it, I'll care for that day. But you know what? I did that song specifically. I love that song, and they can say whatever they want to say. But I did it in his key because I feel it was a magical key. And I could have taken it up, and it was more in a key that would have been more, when I got to that point at the end, it would have been more emotional because I would have been reaching for it.
Right.
But I wasn't reaching at all.
Okay.
And so I took it up an octave at the end and tried not to be all over the place with it, but emotionally that's where it was. And it was like pretty much a 1 or 2 take thing. And it was actually at a friend of mine, her father had just passed away, and she was on the phone with me, and she was crying, and she was saying a lot of the things that were being said in that song. She hadn't had much of a relationship with him, and I had to go downstairs and sing that. And so it was like kind of a deep moment. So, I mean, I think that if you listen to the verses, if a critic wants to blindly thrash me, there's ample opportunity with the fact that, yes, I'm singing, you know, a lot of high notes. Yes, I'm belting, and people might say I'm over-singing on certain songs. Eat, drink, dance, whatever. Butterfly was a very subtle record that I will always stand by and love. But unfortunately, only 2 singles were released from that album, and it was 7 months apart. And it nearly killed me. That, I mean, you know, you look at...
And you had no, at this point in your career, you had no control over that?
In my situation, in my scenario within that company, with what had just gone on, think about it. I mean, I'm not going to make a statement, but... No.
I mean, but I just...
You can force people to do something.
But people don't understand that, because people think of you as like, I mean, you're not even an artist. By being with Sony, it's like, it's beyond record sales. I mean, they use you to raise CD prices. They use you to break new technology. You know what I mean? The new Mariah will be out in all the different formats that they're trying to, for like the mini disc. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're so much more important than just a recording artist to them. So people outside.
But I was never made to
so
feel
powerful.
that way.
Okay.
And I don't even really. I feel awkward saying this. Can it be semi off the record? That like.
I'm not even gonna.
Okay.
Talk about Cry Baby.
Okay.
Because that's a really interesting song.
One of my favorite songs on the album, definitely. What did you think of it, honestly?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I think that was great. But I think it's really interesting in that, I mean that. I'm just trying to be economical and not ask you questions. But, you know, when you talk about, I think it's really interesting where you talk about, you know, hearing the song on the radio and then not being able, and that seemed like it was a really real moment.
That whole song is very real. I was going to call it Crybaby / Insomniac, and I should have, because that's my theme song. And everybody who knows me laughs when I say, I gotta get me some sleep, because the whole thing is like, I don't get no sleep, I'm up all week. And so they laugh at that because it's very true to life. And even when I say, on my tippy toes, because when I walk around without heels on, I'm always in heels. Even when I was little, I always walked on my tippy toes like this. I don't know why. My babysitters used to laugh at me, but like I always walk like a little, like a Barbie, like on my tippy toes. I don't know why. There's really no reason, but like I just naturally do that.
I mean, how does it feel in that you know, you write all your own stuff, so you put your heart into that stuff, and it obviously represents a moment in time.
Right.
So then
it gets interpreted as.
Well, then you have to live with it being part of popular consciousness. You know, you can't, you may move on in your life, but you can't put that past you.
Thank you. Oh my God. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, great.
Sorry.
But you know, you then, that's part of everybody's life then, so you can't move away from that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about The Roof. The Roof was an actual documentation of like one specific thing that could be interpreted in many ways, you know. So I mean, I feel like we're going back to so I feel like I wrote that song, and I love Cry Baby. I think like I don't think I didn't mean to do that.
Why do you keep asking me if I like the album?
No, because
are you concerned about that?
No, because you're telling me about what the critics are going to rag on, and like, you know, you seem to be pretty like in your way trying to brace me for that type of thing.
I think you probably know it though. I mean, one thing I think is so sort of ballsy about the album is that you seem to not care on this album. I mean, I think you really seem to just go for it and do what. It's like, why shouldn't you use your range if you have it? Not everybody has it. Why should you be, you know, penned in? And I think it's, to me, the album seems like a second evolutionary stage from Butterfly. You're breaking free, and you know. So that's why I wonder why you care so much about what the critics.
No, it's not that I care so much, but when you are bringing it up, I'm the type of person, like if someone said, I thought your hair looked bad last Thursday when you went to so-and-so awards, I might be like, really, why? Well, what did you think? You know what I mean? Like, I'll focus on that. It's
do you think you have a need to please?
No, I just think I have an overblown, kind of insecure streak that runs through me, and sometimes it manifests itself as me being a workaholic, like you see. I mean, I don't even sit. I mean, some artists would not tolerate this type of schedule. They'd be like, "Are you insane? I'm sitting down, I'm eating, I'm going out, you know, I'm doing this," and I just work. And I think it's because for the early part of my life. Oh no, you can't go back here. I used to work at the studio right above this nudie bar. It's not banging. It was like I felt like I had to always scramble, and I didn't know whether I had any stability or what was going on in my life. And then I got into that relationship, and it was like I had the success, but I never really felt that euphoric fame feeling, the initial sensation of feeling famous. I didn't have that.
So then why do you do it now?
Because I'd never transitioned from, I mean, monetarily and whatever I did. I mean, I ride around in a limo, whatever, like Kurt Loder said. But I mean, this is just because of the reality of my life. I can't fit all my junk in something else, you know. But I mean, I never transitioned into that person who believes their own hype. Like, I can't.
Why do you do it?
I do it because because I feel like I have to keep going. Probably because I'm insecure and I feel like I have to maintain how far I've come, because I didn't get to enjoy a lot of the first half of it.
Do you want to learn to enjoy it and to just enjoy it and not have this hectic schedule?
Yeah, I really want to be doing my movie and to be doing my...
That's more work, Mariah. Do you want to just...
It's more work, but you know what? It's something that I've been working on for 2 years, and it's something that, like...
Okay, as the last question, give me one goal that you have that's not work-related. And then I'll leave.
I want to have a fun New Year's Eve. I want to be in a warm place. I want to have a party. I want to see fireworks. I want to be with people that I love. I want to not worry about what people think. I want to not worry that there's like secret people out there trying to foil me on the low. I just want to detach for a minute.
Do you think you'll be able to do it?
Yeah, I hope so. I think I will. I've pretty much been able to learn how to do that. I mean, right now, honestly, I don't feel like going back up in here and doing this. But I know. But I know that it won't get done if I don't do it. So I got to... Mainly it all stems from it not getting done. If I had one, like, I kind of envy those artists who have someone who does everything for them. That's like the creative person who, get this one in the studio, they're writing for you, they're going to do it, you come in, you do 3 tracks and you leave. Like, that doesn't work with me.
I don't believe that even if you had that person I think you'd want to be in on it.
I'm saying I wish I were that type of artist that would want that, that would accept that. I can't accept that. It's not my bag.
Well, thank you for giving me this time.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Gonna hop on the train?